Well, good morning, everyone. It's great to see everyone here today, and we're excited to bring people together and to have this type of discussion. And so, just to kind of start off a little bit, I represent Native Nuclear, which is a new nonprofit that we have established just recently. And some goals of our nonprofit is essentially to provide information to, I say, the next generation, like at the high school level, about career pathways in the nuclear industry. Also, we're trying to engage communities, tribal communities with the industry. We have that as a purpose. And then we also are working with tribal communities in reference to maybe considering a consent-based siting area for on their lands. Just to kind of introduce myself, my education is primarily an industrial educator, credentials to teach primarily K-12 education in industrial areas. I have also spent some time as a working for the county building and planning departments. I did some land development, and then my main career, I spent 20 years as the assistant superintendent of business for K-12 education. And I'm a member of the Yak-Tichu Yak-Talihini tribe. They consider me an elder. Yeah, I know I don't look that old, but yes, I'm an elder. And we have kind of a unique relationship. You're probably wondering, why is there a native up here talking about nuclear power? And the reason I'm up here is primarily this plant you see to the right is the Apple Canyon Nuclear Power Plant. That plant was built in the late 60s, early 70s, and it was built on one of our ancestral village sites. During that time, native people, at least in California, did not have a lot of power to have any influence on that. Probably in the 60s and 70s, we probably wouldn't have been very excited about having that happen. But as we slingshot to today, we've actually have a very positive relationship with that plant. And we're going to share a little bit about that. And we're going to talk a little bit about management responsibility when it comes to siting of used fuel storages. We're going to talk a little bit about the cost of what's happening and maybe some potential for different communities. And before we do that, though, what I wanted to do was primarily talk a little bit about how this relates to Native communities. And when we originally started doing these presentations, our charge was to engage communities about the back end of the process, which is the storage side. And we discovered real quick, before we could talk about that, we had to talk about the front part. And so this is why we have this fuel cycle. You can see that it really starts with the mining. We have some conversion and milling to happen. Fabrication of the fuel. I think there's some fuel pellets out there on the table that you can see a little later. We're talking about the generation part, and then of course potentially recycling, and then ultimately back into storage. Well, essentially our tribal group has had an experience with the generation side only, which has been quite positive. And so when we start looking at this, we're saying really there's three parts of the whole industry that has to be addressed, because this community is primarily dealing with the front end, or the mining and the milling. And what I like to say, as far as the industry is concerned and how it relates, it's that it's our shared story. See, when you talk about our tribe, in the generation portion, it's very easy to just kind of look at that one area and not really look too much at those two other areas. But if we're going to have what we would call a nuclear renaissance in the United States, or that power going forward, you have to look at all parts of that. It's our shared story. So really, when we talk about our shared story, we need to say something about mining, milling, generation, and then used fuel management. And in reality, a big deal is the very beginning. It actually is a tribal beginning. And when you take a look at this, it's important to recognize where we started and where we're going. In reality, in 1948, something happened that really changed probably the local environment. I can relate to that because in California, we called that the gold rush in 1848, 49, 1850. And if you know anything about California native history, it wasn't a good history, but during that time, the natives were pretty much in the mountain areas. They were kind of pushed into those areas due to, we say, colonization of California. Guess what, in California, guess where the gold was? The gold was in the hills. And so the gold rush, everybody, I say in their dog, came to California to do mining. Big industry, small industry, and guess where the natives went? They were pushed off. And they really didn't reap the benefit of it. Well, kind of bring that forward as far as uranium mining in 1948. I call that the uranium rush because at that time there was a real rush. That was a war period. We have that real kind of negative period. Also, we had a worldwide rush to nuclear, dominance, if you will. And so essentially there was a rush happening that didn't really go very well at the very beginning because of that. The United States government, who controls mineral rights on lands, they set a price, so that meant everyone rushed. Not only big companies, but mom and pops, they're out there trying to make a score, if you will. Again, a lot of it happened on Navajo land. Department of Interior issued leases, probably without any discussion or comment with the local. And then, of course, the uranium mining kind of died in the 1967. But it left kind of a weird, bad kind of history. Probably initially in Navajo land, I can't speak for them. I'm just looking at kind of a high level here. But probably it was initially looked at as an economic opportunity. Everyone, all of us, we want to try to improve our lives. And but it was kind of a short term, meaning there wasn't long-lasting jobs there. Instead, it kind of created an environmental legacy problem. Today, there's over 500 legacy uranium mines that are still there that need to be dealt with in one way or the other. And then, of course, the community itself, there's estimated over 5,000 community members lost their lives or shortened lives because of what happened there. Federal government tried to do amends with the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, but due to all the actions in Congress, funding, unfunding, and application, so forth, that still is an issue. And then, of course, there's a tremendous loss of trust in the community when somebody is saying we have a new bright idea coming to you. So those are things that we say is our shared, legacy, our shared story that needs to be probably dealt with before we go forward on something of that nature. Oh well, lessons learned from that. Lessons learned that trusted relations are the key. It's the most important thing on any kind of industry. Community engagement. That's what we're here for today, is try to open that discussion back up. It's important to have community engagement. It's very important that everyone is educated on the risks and benefits of any industry. We all need to know what the risks are. We need to know what the benefits are for the community. And then, of course, we need community approval for the project. And so those are lessons that essentially we would like to think we all learned from that past and the way we should be looking at going forward. But I'll give you a little bit of a current day example. And the people that are from the Navajo country that are in the room probably know this story better than I. We, through our engagement process, we ran into a company called DISA Technologies. And they have a process that essentially will help remediate mines that have been left over. And they're hung up in the process at the federal level, trying to get a permit to allow this process to happen. My understanding is the Navajo Nation has already reviewed this process and is agreeing that this is something that would be good to push forward. But here we have the federal government kind of in the way. That's not trust building. You know, whenever you have something that's on the horizon that could help out the situation. So as a tribal member, or our tribe that's on the West Coast, again, that is involved with the generation, we know that the front end has to be dealt with. So we wrote a letter to the NRC saying, basically, you need to approve this. You need to get it down the road. Of course, we got a nice letter back from the NRC that we're working on it, that kind of thing. But these are the kinds of things that can happen to build trust back and solve some of those other issues that need to be dealt with. So this is just an example where we can do a better job trying to build that trust back. I'm going to shift a little bit now and talk a little bit about generation, power generation from nuclear source, and kind of give you my shared story as far as what happened to our community. But before I do so, I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a background on our philosophy of environment and what we're dealing with. First of all, we believe that we all live in the three realms. That's land, water, and sky. And those three realms are all related. They all have spirit. And we all are related to that. We have a relationship with those. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. We're all from Mother Earth, and we're all going to return to Mother Earth someday. And so we need to understand that. We believe it's our stewardship responsibility from the area that we live. I live on the central coast of San Luis Obispo County, California. We believe that's our place to be responsible for and be steward over the natural resources or either man-made resources that are in that area. So we have this little saying that says that when you're dealing with resources, you have an abundance amount of resources here, you're supposed to take a little, maximize that use of that resource, and return very little. Why? Because you're planning for the next generations. You're making sure something's available for the next generation. So that's a little bit of our philosophy as we take a look at things. And we look at power generation, all those different sources. We look at those power generations through those eyes, okay? Or that prism, whatever way you want to say it. I want to show you a quick little area here. This is my homeland. As far as that location, it's dear to our hearts. We, in our homeland, we say we love our homeland and we want you to love it too. So when you come to our area, we'll welcome you. We would want to show you that. Also, you can see that we edited it. It's our responsibility, our stewardship responsibility. You also noticed in that little film, there's the nuclear power plant. As I mentioned earlier, we probably weren't real excited that it was built there, but it is there. Mother Nature has accepted it, our tribe has accepted it, and we've also recognized the value in that overall plan. And so again, that's kind of like a little bit at the beginning of my story here. I wanted to share a little bit about that location and about how it impacts the land stewardship. You can see that total life cycle environmental impact on technology. And when we say total life cycle, We're talking about the impacts on mining, the impacts on generation, the impact on storage of used fuel. Very, very small footprint. It's very much in line with our philosophy of using little, maximizing. It's right in line, and you can see all the other types of generation and how it would actually impact land, water, and sky. We evaluate it based on that versus dollars, cents, how fast you can build, things of that nature. The plant over there in 1981, I had the pleasure of working for the County of San Luis Obispo Building and Planning. I was assigned to go out there at that time. I actually got to see the plant under construction. And when I saw rebar going into that dome, it was like, about 6 inches in diameter. I went away there feeling pretty confident that there's really not an issue here as far as construction. Overkill. Slingshot to 2018, when I retired out of my education career, I was put on the decommissioning panel because California had this bright idea they were going to tear it down. And I've learned way too much about nuclear power. But I also learned that it is very much in line with our tribal philosophy. That's one of the reasons I'm here today, is to try to share that information with the community that we go into. Impact on community benefit. The plant pumps $1.4 billion into our economy. And they had this idea that they were going to eliminate that plant. If they did, it would go down to $15 million. So from an economic point of view, it's a tremendous asset to our community. Very high-paid jobs. It costs a lot of money to live in California, but it does produce high-paying jobs. Talking about what's happening with used fuel, to kind of bring it back to what we're hearing today. Right now, the government, you saw the map, they're all over the place. They would like to consolidate in order to save on dollars. Currently, right now, they're paying out $783 million a year as a rental fee for those canisters that you saw in the picture earlier, to be stored on the utilities site. The idea there is to consolidate and maybe provide a savings to the federal government, also provide dollars for the local community as a community benefit. Today, it's a $12 billion bill for storage. Taking a look at, like what's next. Yucca Mountain, the past, that was a failure, a very expensive failure, $15 million. Why? Because it was top-down type of process. All the professionals said this is the best place for it. Maybe so, but the community wasn't excited about it, and it didn't happen. So going forward, when we talk about the subject of used fuel storage, we're saying it has to be a community up process. That's why we're trying to educate people about that. We're not saying we're going to force anything on you. There has to be a willing community to see the benefits and having that in their community. So we're on a different path, hopefully, to make that happen. This again is just some recaps as far as consent-based siting today. It's our shared responsibility again. We just can't do mining and forget the rest. I can't just do generation and forget everything. It's our shared responsibility. What you need to know, there's 3,800 canisters out there right now. Even if we didn't do any more nuclear power, we still have that responsibility to deal with that. And it's not going to go away. We just need to figure out a best way to handle it. Very important. It's going to be economic and social benefits involved with a community that might be interested, and so forth. So that kind of wraps up my overall part of this. I'd just like to leave you with these words. It says, we will be known forever by the tracks that we leave. And I think as we deal with any industry, whether it's nuclear, solar, or whatever, we need to have that in mind, that we will be remembered. Our sons, daughters, grandsons, they're the ones that are going to deal with whatever we did wisely or not too wisely. So with that, I'd just like to open it up to some questions, and